Hi, I'm Richard Friedman, and welcome to my video cartoon for November 4th, 2025. Here today, this video cartoon titled Richard's in Memory of Dick Cheney, President George W. Bush's influential vice president. Okay, he was also George H.W. Bush's Secretary of Defense. So he worked a lot in government, and what I tried to do here is I had to really go back into my shoeboxes to dig up these cartoons, and I came up with a lot of cartoons I had done during the Iraq War, and I didn't want to dwell into that. So I picked out two cartoons that I thought would fairly represent the Vice President Dick Cheney as he's most well known. And here's the first one. I did this way back, and this is titled here. It's titled The Iraq War Monument on the Mount Rushmore. See? And there was Dick Cheney here, the way I drew him back then. And there was Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, and there's President George H.W. Bush. Okay, that was back then. The way my drawing has come a long way, you could say, from those days. This is a long time ago. Like I said, I had to go back into the shoeboxes. There it was. And I'm going to read you what I wrote here. Vice President Dick Cheney was highly influential in the decision to invade Iraq, serving as a key architect and leading advocate for the war under President George W. Bush. Based on intelligence about weapons of mass destruction, which turned out to be wrong based upon the findings that there were no weapons of mass destruction that Saddam Hussein had. So, and President Bush said that was, I heard him in his own words, never forgot that he said one of his greatest disappointments was that Saddam Hussein didn't have any nuclear weapons, and there was compiled the UN with all those trailers up there, and he showed us all these trailers with that he said had all these weapons and gas and all these poison gases and whatnot, and the thing about it was after that I wrote him a letter, and I said to him, well, I could show you some more of those wagons here out here that a lot of wagons out here and some trailer parks that look just like that I could show you some more trailer parks of nuclear weapons right here in America, because when I heard that, I said to myself, this is really what you call half-baked, because just upon the fact that they were trailers, he was saying that there were all these chemical weapons inside of these trailers, and that proved to be false and not true from what they found, So there you have it. It didn't get me anywhere, but I felt better doing it, knowing that I at least voiced my opinion. And there was that cartoon from those days, and that was the Iraq War Monument on the Mount Rushmore. Okay, again, that was Donald Rumsfeld here. Donald Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense back then, President George W. Bush, and Vice President Dick Cheney. Okay, the second, I had to go through a lot of cartoons to try to get something that would be representative of the true Dick Cheney in all ways. That would not, the man just died. I didn't want to be saying anything that would strike a nerve from the past. So I kept it factual and most representative two of them that I could really feel decent about presenting to you now. So this is the other cartoon, and this was very interesting here. This is President President George W. Bush's vetoes children's insurance bill as VP Cheney looks on. Okay, so what I had here is this. This is what actually happened here, and back then, I'll read it the introduction. Okay, and this is back in October 2017. President George W. Bush vetoed a bipartisan bill that would have dramatically expanded children's health care insurance after saying the legislation was far too costly and had strayed from its original intent of helping the poor. The Senate approved the bill. Approved the bill with enough votes to override Bush's veto, but in the House, the margin I think failed. It failed by 13 votes to override the George W. Bush, President George W. Bush's veto on that bill, saying it was just too expensive. So basically, this was the cartoon here from way back again, and it goes like this: President Bush vetoes children's insurance bill as VP Cheney looks on, and Bush goes, "I want Democrats and Republicans." Here it is. Here he is. I want Democrats and Republicans to come together and help the children. Okay? And help the children. I will not help so they can be. I will not help so they can be helped. That's basically what he said. He wants them to come together, but if they came together, they'd override his veto. So it sounded a little familiar in that phrasing that we're hearing now from some people. Okay, now here's Dick Cheney, vice president. I drew him. Now he's calling for a veto override on himself. So in a sense, here he's calling out the House and more importantly, the House to unite and join in with the Senate and override his veto. It sounded that way. So I did this cartoon way back. Like I said, I had to go into the shoeboxes to dig this up from a long time ago. And there it was. And the thing about it was watching today, they were on the television. They were reviewing about Dick Cheney's history in government, and when he was in the Bush administration, George W. Bush administration, they were cutting a lot of programs and cutting. And somebody told a story that it came down to it. Dick Cheney said, "No more. We can't cut no more. That's it." So he knew how far he could go, and that's a positive thing about it, is that he did have some kind of a heart somewhere. So he did have a heart in that he stopped and said and Cheney was one of the most influential, probably the most influential vice president in the history of our country, because he was involved in everything. I think I heard a story that he had offices all over the place in Washington. It wasn't only in the White House. He had offices in a lot of agencies. He had his desks there somewhere in the office. So he really was very involved and very influential. And again, people have said that without him, these are historians who have said without Dick Cheney, the Vietnam War might not have ever been fought. So that's an opinion of historians who have said that. On the other hand, they give the very clear reminiscence of him saying, "No, that's enough cuts. You can't do no more." So there you go. That he had a backbone and he had a heart, and he did speak the truth, and what he believed. I believe the truth is that he believed he was doing the right thing in going into Iraq. He wasn't doing this for any political purposes. I believe he felt in his heart he had gone through a lot on 9/11, having to order those American forces to possibly shoot down a passenger plane. He had to go through a lot of hell that day, and so, you know, it doesn't. I'm just saying the facts here. I believe that in his mind, he thought he was doing right for this country in supporting the mistakes that were made. And that's it, folks. Thank you for watching my video. God bless you, and may God watch all. May God take Dick Cheney in and look at him as favorably as possible. And that's about it, folks. Hang in there, and I'll see you next time. Bye.